Tom, from what you saw Saturday, I mean, obviously we can have all kinds of conversations. We, of course, talked with Don Patterson during our post-game show Saturday about just kind of the analytics behind what happened. It's hard to explain because you have a team who, of course, was playing, although they were not very disciplined in their first four contests, they were not throwing very many picks, and they ended up with 6, of course, on Friday night. How did that happen? I mean, is this Maryland team just not ready to take that next step, or what happened on Friday night?
Yeah, it was one of the stranger games that I've experienced. That was just, it was wild that because that first quarter, it was kind of like both these teams, I always like to use the boxing analogies, but they were both kind of feeling each other out and kind of punching back. And, I thought this game, this game's going 4 quarters and it's going to be a battle and a fight. And they were going to cause Iowa a lot of trouble. But that second quarter, I really think the game changed on the Demas kickoff return.
Yeah,
he gets hurt and that fumble and that turnover, because it took him out of the game, and he was the best player on the field and doing a lot of things, and he was going to make life difficult for the Hawkeyes. And he was out, and Iowa got a short field and capitalized. And it just seemed like Maryland just fell apart after that. I mean, and you could see them making dumb mistakes. I mean, what was it? 3 illegal procedure calls on like 3rd and 1, 4th and 1. Just things that you can't do if you're going to be a good team. And then, Talia Tungavailoa was just throwing balls up in the air. Just kind of, it's that the wildest stat that you'll ever see was the one that somebody threw out there, and the first person that retweeted it was Scott Dockerman, and it was that he went from lowest number of interceptions to the most interceptions in one night.
Yeah,
and now we've got 4 quarterbacks that didn't finish games out of 5 games against Iowa. It just tells you what that defense is doing. Iowa is number 1 in the country, tied with Hawaii for most turnovers created, and they're number 1 in the country by themselves in turnover margin. So that tells you they're not turning the ball over a whole lot, and they're creating a lot of them. That's a recipe for success, Corey. That's how you're going to win a lot of football games. That's how you're going to win. You're going to put 51 points up. I was wild. I've never seen anything like that where an Iowa team just kind of it just went and by halftime, if that I'd use the boxing analogy, the trainer should have thrown in the towel at that point. I mean, they were done.
Running clock. We should have had a running clock. I know the announcers made a comment about that.
Like an Iowa high school game.
Yeah, and I agree with you. The loss of Demas was huge, and I don't know the view or the replays. I'm sure you saw a replay of that after, Tom, but it was hard to watch even on camera or on television when it happened. I haven't heard any updates on him. I guess I really haven't been in touch with the coaching staff as far as any comments this week about Dante Demas. But yeah, they obviously live and die by the big play. And when you take your biggest playmaker out of the game, and that's why I always get a little nervous when you place your best player or your best skill position player back there for kickoff returns, punt returns. Now we've seen teams like Penn State get away with it with Saquon. We saw Purdue and Rondell Moore. We've seen Iowa with Smith Marset. And for the most part, you get away with it. But those injuries, you're just putting those guys on the front lines, so to speak. And you're right. That second quarter was just, again, a dismantling. I thought Iowa's run game looked a lot better. I mean, there was a lot of concern. I think there still should be some concern after what we saw against Colorado State and Iowa's inability to run. But Tom, what did you see as far as the run game that encourages you? To me, a big key was every game now, Kyler Schott is getting more and more comfortable and back up to game speed.
Yeah, that's something I wrote about yesterday, was just that maybe that's part of it, is that you're seeing a veteran guy who had some starts under his belt get more and more reps. He's up over 40, I think, in this game, just getting out there, starting. And I think that just brings more stability
Yeah. Continuity. Yeah.
Yeah. I just think stability is just so important. And, I asked Kirk about that last week at his Tuesday press conference, if there was when he needs to kind of make a decision on that. And he really kind of punted on it. But he did kind of mention maybe by the bye week. So we'll get a couple more weeks where going to probably be doing some of that, moving around and adjusting. I thought Justin Britt played maybe his best game. I thought he was really good. Got to start in the second half, which you kind of notice.
Right.
So I think things are coming together on that offensive line. I want to also mention somebody else in blocking regards, and that's Luke Lachey. I thought he was terrific. I don't know if it showed up on the broadcast.
Well, there was one. Let me tell you something, Don. There was one play, and I brought it up during the post game. There was one play. And in fact, we cut up a video today and posted it where you see Lachey just pancake a guy.
Yeah, that was the play.
It was a naked to Laporta.
Yeah, it was the Laporta. I think the first time they did that.
First of many.
And
Maryland was slow to catch up on that.
And he just he rode the guy for about 10 yards. And then he pushed him out of bounds and dropped him on his butt. And it's
great to see from a young guy. I
was really impressed. And he had a couple of those where he just kind of controlled some people. So I thought that was a good sign too, because I think the tight ends need to block a little bit better too. I think that's going to help. I think the receivers blocking better. They miss, like Brandon Smith. It's just such a good blocker.
He was.
And that's why last year Iowa averaged 4.5 yards per carry. They busted some runs, but Tyler Goodson, I thought, had a terrific game. It was weird. Some of us in the press box were talking, and we're like, "Gosh, it felt like he had like over 100 yards." But he only had 66. But we're also not factoring in that he caught those passes, especially the 67-yarder, and everybody's like, "Yeah, okay." It's more about the volume of what he did, the total yards that he did.
Well, let me be devil's advocate for a second here, Tom. And I brought this up to Don, and Don kind of downplayed it after the game. And I can see where he's coming from, but I was a little bit concerned. It seemed like in the third and fourth quarters, especially third, because we didn't see a whole lot of the starters in the fourth, but it seemed like in the third quarter, there was still times where he's running into a wall. And so I don't think it's time to just, especially against the Penn State defense like we've got. And of course, Wisconsin's defense is one of the best in the country. The run game has still got work to do. You mentioned the tight ends. And of course, we talked about Kyler. I'm no O-line guru, but I thought Cody Ince, last year was really good. And I don't know if he took a step back this year or if it's just a combination of factors, again, with Kyler Schott being down and again, the new tackles. But the new tackles to me, DeYoung and Richmond, who you spoke very highly of in the spring, they both seem to be, along with Connor Colby, who's playing more inside now, they seem to be improving week by week. Is that accurate in your estimation?
Yeah, I think it's been interesting the last couple of weeks, though, that we're seeing some more Jack Plum at. Yeah,
that's true. You are right.
I thought that was curious, and we really haven't dove in. It's something I really do need to dive into with Kirk Ferentz tomorrow, and just kind of ask him if they're kind of feeling out Plum there, or what's going on, if they're seeing some things with DeYoung that they think need to improve. I think Richmond's he's just terrific. It's like I've been on that bandwagon early, and it's proven me right. The blind squirrel finds the acorn every once in a while, Corey. So I get a few things right every once in a while. Like last week, I said before the game, I said that Arlen Bruce was gonna, it was Keegan Johnson one week, and it's Arlen Bruce this week, and that one proved to be right. But most of my predictions are wrong. But I like to crow about the ones I get right every once in a while.
I was convinced that, and part of the reason why I believe that the run game did struggle is because just simple the fact that you have Alaric Jackson on the left, who's gone. You have Mark Kallenberger, who steps away from football on the right. Coy Cronk got snaps there last year as well. He leaves. So just that, again, mixing in new blood. But with Richmond on the left, and now DeYoung and Plum. I was convinced preseason that it was going to be Plum on the left. And then on the right, there was talk about Cody Ince maybe playing tackle, which I didn't like because I thought Cody really, again, played really well on the inside last year.
Sure.
And that kind of takes away from what you do on the interior. But I guess moving along from what we saw offensively with the run game, Spencer Petras played his best game as an Iowa quarterback, at least his most complete game, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. You can look at the numbers from the Kent State game. That was sort of a horizontal passing game, if you will. So a lot of completions and a pretty good completion percentage, but not a lot downfield. We've seen these last two games, his ability. And I just want to say this, and I did mention it during the post game, but I think it's fair. There's been so much criticism on Spencer over the past year. I think credit needs to be given to the fact that kid has improved a lot over the course of the year. And there's certain areas where I still hope that he can take that next step. One of the areas is his inability to escape any sort of pressure. It seems like he goes down with a moment's notice. I mean, just any contact at all, and he hits the turf. But he's improved. I mean, if you look at last year, his inability to get the ball downfield with touch, and he puts so much air under the ball, almost too much air, it feels like. But man, he puts the ball on target. He's accurate. He's gotten a lot more accurate with crossing routes and just basic throws. Sometimes he'll miss guys, simple throws, but he seems to have really taken a step forward.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Some of the criticism was fair.
Sure.
The last year, I think totally fair to be critical of him. I think he was probably critical of himself more than anybody else. And there's some merit to the idea that Kirk threw out there last year about not having spring ball, having a weird fall camp and trying to take over as a starter. I think there's, I asked Chuck Long about that. I do a podcast every week with Chuck, and Chuck said there's a ton of validity to that because it makes it hard for the kid to kind of settle in.
Right.
He's getting better, I think, at a fairly rapid rate.
I agree.
And I know some fans are just out on him and they're just waiting for him to make the mistake and just say, like, give me Padilla, give me Hogan.
Give me a break. Give me a break. And I'm not trying to criticize Alex Padilla or Deuce Hogan, but we saw a glimpse of Alex Padilla at the end of that game, and I get it. It's his first real snaps. I mean, I thought he should have been given more of an opportunity to throw in that Kent State game when they got up, but he's not the answer. I think it's clear that Spencer's if we don't trust the coaches, and now we should be able to at least get a glimpse with what we saw Friday that Spencer's the best guy right now on that roster.
Yeah, and he is getting better on the thing that I mentioned, like the Colorado State game when he hits Keegan Johnson down the sidelines. He can't make that throw a year ago.
No.
He puts that on a line too much, and it's just
way too much steam last year on all those.
I think we saw last year. He even missed like on a Laporta one where he was wide open. I think he missed one of those last year too. Something like that. Just airmailed it. So he's learned the big thing. I talked to Tony Racioppi, who was his quarterback coach that he started going to this summer. And he said that the big thing was trying to get him to relax.
Yeah.
And I talked to Spencer about that too, because I just thought when it jumped out at me was last year at the end of the year when he hit Amir Smith-Marset for a touchdown, the one that Amir did the flip. And he said he didn't even see the play finish because he was just so wired. And I'm just like, that's a kid that's just too tightly wound. He's trying too hard and he's just got to relax. And you can just tell by the way he's throwing those balls, the moon shots that, were that Reganey and Charlie Jones are coming down with the Willie Mays catches.
Yep.
And, young people, Willie Mays caught a ball in Polo Grounds in 1954. Vic Wertz hit the ball and he caught it over his shoulder.
Yeah.
I think Spencer knew the reference when I mentioned about Willie Mays because he's a Bay Area guy. So he's been there and he knows Willie Mays, but the other guys are like, Willie, it's Willie Mays, they're making plays on it and they're taking shots. And if they're getting single coverage, they're taking those shots now instead of kind of looking to just dump it off. And
yeah.
I thought Friday night was, I'd probably put it third on the Brian Ferentz good play calling. I put the Holiday Bowl at 1. I put the Ohio State game at 2.
Yeah.
This one was 3.
I could see that.
Play calling wise, I thought he did a really good job of kind of hitting the right notes.
So you won't give him enough credit for the 63-0 win over Illinois in 18.
Yeah,
that was just a bad Illinois team.
Illinois was just trash.
They're not much better this year, unfortunately. But you talk about that Willie Mays catch, or both, well, kind of two of them, the one by Charlie and one by Reganey. I thought that the first throw Friday night from Petras to Reganey was very catchable. That was a good throw by Petras, and they showed it on replay, and Reganey probably should have caught that ball. It was a little bit out in front of him, but man, Petras again, you mentioned a touch, but he's putting the ball on the money, and that's one thing. And I know we probably shouldn't try comparing quarterbacks of past eras or of past teams, but that's one thing that, again, I'm not taking away from anything Nate Stanley did at Iowa, but Nate never, at least from my vantage point, never developed the ability to consistently get the ball down the field and on the money. Yeah. I mean, he hit some 100%. Deep balls. Yeah, and I think back to 2018, Tom, and we're going to talk about the Penn State games that we kind of remember from past seasons. 2018, you'll recall, on a beautiful play-action fake, T.J. Hawkinson, no one within 10 yards of him down the field. And what did Nate Stanley do? He threw it 5-10 yards past T.J. Hawkinson.
Yeah.
And that was a killer. And that's the kind of ball that you mentioned the Colorado State throw to Laporta. Petras, I think we can have confidence right now. He's not, he is hitting his guys on the money. Nate seemed to either overthrow or underthrow a lot. And I'm just impressed by him. I'm not saying he's the next, Johnny Unitas, or, I'm not trying to say he's going to be a football legend. But he's got the intangibles. We've talked about that for many months. He's got the arm and the size.
You could make a case right now that, Martinez probably would get the nod most places, but the Big Ten West quarterbacks, is Spencer Petras 1 or 1A?
Yeah.
I think so. I think he's better than Graham Mertz, better than Tanner Morgan, better than whatever.
The kid from Clemson down at Northwestern, yeah.
Alinsky and, Hunter Johnson, the 5-star kid.
Well, Tanner Morgan would have had my preseason. I mean, I would have given him the benefit of the doubt last year thrown out because he was good 2 years ago. But man, he's a different guy. And
Illinois,
they're a dumpster fire.
I don't know. Purdue's been bouncing guys in and out.
They're back to Aiden O'Connell now.
Yeah, and they were, it was Plummer for a while, and now it's Aiden O'Connell, and I think he's coming along. Now, I jokingly said that Spencer being the best quarterback in the Big Ten West is like acknowledging the world's tallest midget kind of thing. It's just,
it's not a good year for the quarterback. I think anywhere in the Big Ten, but especially the Big Ten West.
Yeah, you might. There's probably. I think if you did a ballot today, you would probably say that the Penn State quarterback, Sean Clifford, is the top Big Ten quarterback right now.
I think C.J. Stroud would get my vote, but the problem is the perception around him and around Ohio State.